and let the car glide the last 30 meters into the empty driveway. After checking the rearview mirror, he grabbed the backpack, opened the door silently, and stepped out. Using the door as cover, he slipped the knife into the back pocket of his jeans before letting his shirt fall back over the handle. He felt good. He could hear the orchestra's drums thumping, racing towards a crescendo. Soon, it would be over. 1:20 p.m. Sunday, 2nd of February. The familiar metallic smell enveloped Zoe as she reached the end of the hallway. Under her old, dark work suit, she was wearing a new white shirt, not yet washed enough to feel comfortable against her skin. Her black Doc Martens, polished soft over many years, were encased in powder blue plastic booties. She adjusted her forensic mask and from the doorway looked down at the man slumped against the far wall. Zoe thought he looked about 40, fit, with sun-bleached blonde hair and a deep tan. His pale blue eyes stared back at her in surprise. His mouth was open and his arms were spread out as if he was still pleading for life. Zoe could see the blade of a large knife, an intricate pattern of dots etched into its silver handle, disappearing into a short-sleeved shirt, once white, now stained a rich burgundy. On the wall above the body, a mirror was shattered, shards still held loosely together by its frame. She saw herself reflected from across the room, her tanned face and dark ponytail shattered into a dozen abstract angles. Looks about right, she thought with a wry smile, considering the reason for the 4 months of enforced leave she'd just taken. At that moment, one of the pieces of glass fell, bouncing off the victim's head and landing point first in the thickening blood pooled around the body. Zoe swept her eyes around the room. The furniture looked cheap and new, except the television, which was high-end and huge. Nothing seemed to match, as if it had all been bought in a hurry. In the distance, she could hear waves crashing and children squealing. Even inside, the late summer heat baked her throat, and she wished she'd left her jacket in the car. She cursed the idea of the dark suit as the standard homicide uniform. When her phone had rung, just before lunch, she felt a rush seeing the number on the screen. She called Charlie straight afterwards to say they had a job. He moaned when she told him it was in Portsea, an hour-and-a-half's drive south of Melbourne, around the arc of Port Phillip Bay. "Welcome back," he'd mumbled before hanging up. While being part of the weekend on-call team wasn't Charlie's idea of a good time, Zoe was ready to go, happy to be back. Now she was here, though. She needed to keep her game face on. She heard footsteps coming up the hall. "Detective Sergeant Mayer, good to see you." It was Oliver Noonan, the pathologist. He wore a white jumpsuit with a hood and mask. His powder blue plastic booties matched hers. When Zoe was in training, Oliver had performed the first autopsy she'd witnessed. He was sympathetic when, along with most of her class, she threw up into one of the sick bags he'd handed out beforehand. She became a vegetarian that day. Zoe had always liked Oliver. He had been kind-hearted and patient when she was learning the ropes. She pivoted to face him, smiling behind her mask. "Hi, Oliver. Good to see you too. How have you been?" Oliver gave a resigned snort. "Okay, though I'd prefer to be at home watching the cricket." He turned to take in the scene. "Well, that's just unpleasant," he muttered, looking down at the body. Zoe noticed that his greying eyebrows had grown longer since she'd last seen him. 3 major crime scene examiners from forensics pushed past them into the room. All were wearing jumpsuits and masks. One had a case of tools for collecting evidence, one a video camera, and the last a large Nikon. The woman holding the video camera took a slow sweep of the room before zooming in on the victim. "Hey there, Zoe," said the officer carrying the tools. "When did you get back?" "Hi, Jenny. Today. Charlie and I are on call." "Glad you're back on deck. Charlie putting off the inevitable?" Zoe grinned behind her mask. "Guess so. He's checking outside the house." "Being thorough," said Jenny.